I'm recording.
I can't wait for strangers on the street to look at me weird as I talk about how the lifestyles of the various humans in cages.
So we're going to be all over the place in terms of who's speaking when because I put this in alphabetical order.
Alphabetical is the only order.
Oh no. You know, that is the most important question.
Please save your questions for the end. Thank you.
Would
Also, please put your questions in a triple tilde format so we can find them quickly.
Yes.
At the end.
I'm going to.
What do you mean, no, hangry? Are we ready? It's 6
Ready as
after.
we'll ever be.
Party. All right, Apples,
Perfect.
you got control. Go forth.
I do got control. So we got more countries than ever. We got a bigger map than ever. We ain't just regional. We're worldwide now. And that means that there is going to be a lot of empty space for people to have their own countries, but we hope that if someone wants to play with one of the cool ones we had. I mean, there's 14 people in the audience. There's one for each of you, at least. So without further ado, let's get into our countries. There we go. I figured it out. Naku, I believe you were head on Etheria, right?
I sure was. So, Etheria is a nation that appeared literally in the ocean 5 years ago. Just one day, there was trade routes for like Piscaful and Frankelberg in the area, and then one day, they went to go through their primary trade routes, and there were just 3 giant-ass mountains just in the middle of the ocean, and 7 smaller ones around the outside. This is where the Talam have settled since their sort of birth. There are 3 islands that are each have like a more dedicated population of each of the 3 different subsets of the Talam. They connect these mountains with giant wooden bridges, and strangely enough, some rocks and small little bits of the mountain literally float in the air around it. It's a natural, magical phenomenon that nobody's quite sure how it works. But, boulders just kind of aimlessly float around the mountains. Etheria is a place of natural magic. It's a place that's very centered on just nature in general, a lot of the Talam's common practices. They don't have a unified religion because the Talam have only recently come together over the last 5 years because they're a very young race and Etheria is a very young nation. But they have a sort of a universal love for the sun, the moon, the other astral bodies, and their lives really revolve around that. Solaria gets the most sunshine, Lunaria in the middle gets almost none, and Tularia gets a fair amount. So they're kind of split for their Talam preference there. But yep, it's a very diverse place. You can go read about it on the website, but that's the 2-minute spiel.
All right. Hania is one that I wrote on. That is Ahania. We'll be cracking down on people who pronounce it angina. Ahania. This is a country that is built deep within mountains that are hyper rich in ore and silver. Absurdly rich with these natural minerals. The mountains themselves are called the Gallant Mountains from Galena ore, which is primarily a lead ore that also contains a good bit of silver. We are essentially looking at this place as being a country for people who are, even in the past 5 years, if you don't want to be exposed to a lot of magic, Ahania is a place for you. Due to the amount of silver rich in the ores, it's very difficult to do much of any magic there. The capital is Briamon. Generally, they have excellent medics there because they have done so many ecological disasters that have caused so many illness over the centuries. that they've kind of learned how to fix that a little bit. They're one of the oldest countries in the world. They were originally settled by the fallen empire for which our date system is written, and they will really not play a big part in what you're going to see in Vardarin, but if you are interested in playing a character from here, you will have sort of a background in a very wealthy place, protected and insular on many mountains, giant works of art like a cross between Switzerland and Wakanda. I'll let you decide which one of those is real.
Fenny, Alinar was your offspring, correct?
I believe that's Finney.
May have been accosted by strangers in the street.
Yeah. Too many kids with too many face paints. Yes, Alinar is the land of the triple philosophies. This is a large agricultural land that has scraped out its existence from a previously infertile area, being just south of Saloon. It wasn't the best of places, but through a combined efforts of the three, the three different pillars, they have managed to eke out a survival that has turned into a thrival. They have the Bandits, which are the more technologically forward-minded individuals. They have the Mageria Collegiate. They are more the magically inclined variants. And then we have the Agraria, which are the traditional. Their primary means of success have come from their open-minded approach that if one thing doesn't work, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is wrong. It just means now is not the time for it. The philosophy is best summed up as when all three legs of the table are of equal length, there is balance.
All right. So next up is Frankelberg, my beloved. You'll never escape from Frankelberg as long as I have anything to do with writing lore. So Frankelberg is a collection of a united, 1,000 or so queendoms. They've come together because Welrons was fucking with them, their northern neighbor, and they were like, hey, we're stronger together. And so the queendoms united temporarily to stave off war, and then we're like, this is going so well for us, let's just do this forever. It is a traditional matriarchy. They have a ministry of queens in their capital city that, meet every once in a while to decide what they're going to do about the economy and other lame things. Frankelberg has a very strong sense of national identity, both as their individual queendoms, for a strong identity of loving their microcultures, as well as the Frankelbergian identity as a whole. They're very unique in that. They also believe that those different cultures woven together as a quilt is part of what makes them so strong. So Frankelbergians have a very long and healthy tradition of sharing in each other's culture, of celebrating each other's cultures and each other's differences, because they truly have a, that strong sense of national pride that they're, the ultimate melting pot, and they're strong as fuck because of that. So it's something that they celebrate. That said, the really only big exception to that is they are very close to Caladran, so they have a long and contested history of losing ground to vampires, of having their people slaughtered by vampires. So in most queendoms, vampires are the enemy, and they will be killed if you're found, because they don't like the bloodsuckers in Frankelberg. And that's pretty much it.
We got Art. Halfjelheim?
Halfjelheim. Halfjelheim used to be a place of nomads known as the Ashfolk. Now they have been collected together as merchants and people who work with the land they have. Now there's a lot of volcanoes around in the area, so hence the name Ashfolk. But they are very focused on the natural aspects of the world. And one of their big religions is the one surrounded around the Frost Father and the Storm Speaker. But their big focus is trade, and they particularly enjoy dyes. Dyes are used as their currency for the most part, rather than coin. However, there is this split within them. There are people who are very traditional, even going as far back as the Ash Folk, but there are these new ones who are much more interested in places like Norris. They've been trying to meet in the middle, but it's kind of hard for them to meet in the middle.
Alright, and Lakra was Finny as well.
Yes, the Lakra Archipelago. It is a volcanic island chain that was originally hailed as the Gold Frontier. The island's incredibly resource rich, densely forested, and abundant mineral wealth thanks to the active, albeit non-erupting, volcanoes. It originally attracted people looking to crack into that wealth and bring it home. And think of it like how the Spanish initially set out looking for gold and all those resources of the East and West. But with wealth came those looking to steal it, and it eventually became a pirate haven. Anyone looking to escape the law or set out for a new life or even just lay low that settled down into the region to become its primary inhabitants. This came to be known as the port town of Anchors Down. Eventually, the ships coming in for the repairs there were able to do so at increasingly cheaper and easier rates as the town became more established. Now, Anchors Down and the other smaller port towns are akin to the Dust Bowl towns of the Wild West, all wood structures with just the basic necessities, with the saloon/bar as the essential center of the town. They have created various alliances with the other seafaring nations of the area, primarily the Piscatawol, but everyone else is free game as they look to leverage their free and might makes right lifestyle to take what they want.
I like that attitude. All right. Thank you, Finney. I'll pick up the next one. I worked on Norris. However, it is Merrick's little baby. Little baby Merrick. Now, you see right here, it says Hungry Shoals. Go back, we see Hungry Shoals. Norris is right next to the pirates. Norris doesn't like being right next to the pirates, but they can't do a lot about that. Norris used to be a normal old kingdom. Knights, honor, ducal lords, chivalry. Then they had a plague. That plague happened some odd 300 years ago. That plague didn't just end when the person died, because they got back up. Because they didn't hear no bell, and they kept spreading the plague. Norris survived a zombie plague 300 years ago and began moving towards making sure it wouldn't happen again. Now, the plague is never fully recited in Norris. If your character's from there, outbreaks still happen every couple years. And how bad they are depends from year to year. Sometimes it can be devastating to an entire region. Sometimes it can be pretty minor. A couple grandpas end up as zombies for a few days, we isolate them, and it's safe. There are three main regions of Norris. There's the more mountainous side, where they do their mineral extraction. They have a small mining industry, not as big as Ahania, and definitely not as big as the islands off the coast. but they do have some mineral extraction. Hollyhaven is the town in their fertile valley. Now, in Norris, they have a perpetual rain similar to Northern Gloomrot, made through the brilliance of their scientists and their learned folk who have figured out a way to call down the rain. And they've used this not to make weird mutants and not to militarize weird birdcage people with lasers on them. That's dumb. Who would do that, Transcendum? Transcendum, why are you the way you are? No, they made industrialized agriculture so that they could feed their people and feed more than their people without the population. Because whenever their population creeps too high, the plague breaks out again, and it keeps it back in line. For some reason, the plague doesn't really tend to go beyond their national borders. And for other reasons, things can be troublesome there. Their northern town, Halbjark, is their primary trade port because it's the furthest from the pirates. So that's where they actually do most of their trade. Just north of that is going to be Hafjelheim, which you already saw. Good trading partner, considering how much extra grain Norris is able to produce. Economically, that's really what defines Norris. They have industrialized mining, industrialized agriculture, and they do what they can to make money in the world. But they don't have the people to really capitalize on it. And they do have strict laws to protect the rights of their people, even those who are so woefully incompetent they can't contribute to society. They get their rations, they get their welfare state, and some of them are happy, but there's a striving culture in Norris to want to be more, to want to be at the top. So it's very common in Norris for people to do things like chase for a doctorate degree or something like that, so that you have many people who are in kind of middling tiers of society that have incredibly good educations and will know more than just about anyone else on some very niche subject, which I personally think is wonderful. And I don't think that's a sign of a crumbling society at all. Neither do the people of Norris. I just read that. Yes, it's you. You get the welfare rations and then spread the zombie plague. Other races in Norris are going to be treated somewhat differently. So, if you are a Mitt who ends up in Norris, then you are going to have a little bit of trouble because your existence as someone who messes with magic, you can very easily, even accidentally, destabilize the economy. If you're a Talam, it's even worse. Your primary schools of magic are Frost and Lightning, both of which will wreak havoc on the machinery there. So if you are from Norris, consider what it's like to be one of these other races in the setting and how that might impact your backstory. Furthermore, I do want to emphasize sort of the geography of this Hollyhaven area in particular. It is the fertile valley of Norris. It is the most fertile. And this city, Hollyhaven, sort of sits on a hill in the middle of this valley. And they have these sort of glass walkways and breezeways so that the rain doesn't get on you for their streets. And because they don't have really the desire to make large-scale glass, and that sort of technology isn't there yet, instead of having giant lenses and giant sheets of curved glass, instead you're going to get these sort of iron or copper wrought designs on the ceilings of these breezeways with little pans of thick glass, some of which are colored in different neighborhoods as well, to really bring about kind of a beautiful look for the occasional times that light reaches the street level of Norris, or the street level of Hollyhaven, as it is eternally storming, as it has been for about the past century.
You know where else
that's
the
why
weather
they need
sucks?
money.
You know where else the weather
Why is
sucks? Nova Franca.
Tell us about it.
So, Nova Franca is started off as a colony of Frankenberg called Saint Lumos, named after a luminance saint. Nova Franca, their primary thing was exporting lumber. They would cut their way in to the center of the island, and they'd send those logs right back to mainland Frankelberg. Eventually, the colony that was there just got swallowed up by that forest. The forest always had really weird weather, kind of weird mist that was thick and disorienting. Um, the colony itself disappeared. They were unable to contact it. They went back to the shores, and the trees were back as though they'd never been cut down. And so Frankelberg wrote off the colony as lost. And then, many, many years later, they reemerged and were like, "Hello, yes, we'd like to be our own queendom. We are Nova. We're St. Lumos. Hello, we'd like to be our own queendom." And Frankelberg was like, "Hey, your island's haunted. We don't want you to be a queendom." And so instead, they established themselves as a vastly superior nation that is Nova Franca. Because Nova Franca lives in a very, very suspicious forest that is full of mists and monsters and arguably perhaps curses, the people of Nova Franca, the most vital and important member of their society, are the lumberjacks. Because the lumberjacks, they keep that encroaching, weird, accursed, misty forest back out of the city. And so they've sort of built their culture around a lot of lumberjack iconography. They have a very strong sense of national pride, and they're kind of weird because they've sort of been living in this weird, disorienting, people-eating mist for a long time. They haven't really reacted in any particular way to the emergence of magic. All races are welcome in Nova Franca as long as you're not, like, murdering people. They're pretty just generally neutral to all forms of magic because they've been living side by side with some fucking weirdness since their foundation. They have a strange relationship with Frankelberg, who thinks that they're cursed and bad luck, but they themselves think that they're cooler and better than Frankelberg. But otherwise, they're a bit too small of a nation because they are more of a kind of like a single city nation. There's not really any large settlements besides their capital city. So their culture is pretty insular and pretty self-fueling. And that's Nova Franca.
One moment, I have a chippy in my mouth.
A
A
chippy.
chippy. Thank you. So, Novosvet. This is the southern end of the eastern continent on which Vardaran falls. This is our luminance country. And in our luminance country, we have many different things that have brought them to the light. Their history as Novosvet is really defined by a slow revolution that began about 300 years ago, started by the prophet Gabriel, the founder of the Luminance. He came to the most war-torn region of what would become Novosvet, which was in fact the only fertile region, because before it was something like 16, 17 different kingdoms, all vying for control, all fighting with each other over ostensibly what's terrible land. Anything sort of south of this tree line is mostly inhospitable. Anything kind of south of here, the ocean freezes in winter. And anything south of here, it's frozen year-round. When we talk about Novosvet, the life at the southern end of the world really defines them. The long winters, the long night of winter where the sun never shines. The region known as the Night Wastes, where, due to peculiar weather patterns, totally not caused by anyone else on the continent not thinking things throughly, there's just an eternal overcast. So even during the day, there's no sunlight in the Night Wastes. It's a dark, barren tundra between river, forest, and mountains. It's not a great place to live, but people did it for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, fighting with each other, brutally, fighting with nature. And then Luminance came, and Luminance taught them an important lesson. You're not fighting with your fellow man, you're fighting on behalf of your kings against their fellow kings. And that kings are forbidden for all are equal under the light, and all deserve to give all of their worship unto the light, and kings take worship from the light, and therefore are evil. So, the Luminance movement quickly began to radicalize the people against their monarchies, and they overthrew such oppression so that they could have a single glorious nation under the light. Except the fact that it is still objectively very dark for most of it. The most southern city, Aurea, is going to be essentially at the South Pole. This is a very important place of worship for the Luminance. People might even go on a pilgrimage here because they want to see the beautiful southern lights, the aurora. The aurora, which, used with mirrors and trickery, gave the first light weaver her title, as it was several hundred years too early for light magic. But she used it to overthrow a monarch. Just in time for the prophet Nicholas to come in, she presented the head and the kingdom of Aurea, part of Dormiria, the most southern and inhospitable of all Novosvet, to join the glorious new light or new world, which is literally what Novosvet means in real life language. I love that Svet can mean either world or light, and that's why it's called that. It's so good. So good. Thanks, Slavic Language Group. Y'all are great sometimes. All right. Now that we've talked about the southern wasteland, let's talk about the northern wasteland. Finney, would you like to?
All right. Hold on, that's no good.
No good, you guys.
Let's get somewhere a lit, not next to the stage. All right. Yes, the Omen Plateau. The life in the plateau is difficult between the altitude sickness, temperature extremes of night and day, and the dangerous sandstorms. It is a harsh land that does not give lightly. Now, the human population is dimly aware that the vampires must have a home somewhere in the wastes, but they can't imagine that it's at the scale of a proper city. And that suits the Nightkin of Zaladran, the underground city, just fine. The underground city is very beautiful, very fancy, very elaborate. That is contrasted with the inhabitants' ascetic lives. They live very minimally, mostly due to the limited resources of the all-important blood. As for the humans themselves, they are managed by a roving government of the trade barons, and they are the head of the various caravans that keep the people supplied and manage the trade routes both domestic and abroad. Their individual authority rises and falls with their patronage to the lighthouse towers, which expires regularly on contract. Now, the towers themselves are owned by the people, but a few have been covertly taken control of by the vampires. Now, in keeping the blood flowing into Zaladran. And the sand whale, my friend, that isn't real. Children's tale. You must be dehydrated, my friend.
Yeah, I think there's an error on the map. There's a sand whale there. I'm not sure that's supposed to be there. Anyone have comments on that? Oh yeah, no, this is the Pope. This is the Pope. Sandwell's Pope.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's just a guy. Don't worry about it.
That's John Sandwell.
It's artistic freedom. Let's talk about Piscavol. So
You got the Naku slide.
Hey guys, so Piscavol is a island nation that is. They center all of their economy around fishing and seafaring. So they are contracted by nearby nations to build them boats because they've been building boats for a very long time and they're very, very good at it. They also have the fastest boats in the world and the largest navy. Despite their small size, they have a long history of putting Frankelberg and well runs into the fucking ground, or into the sea, I suppose, for trying to fuck with them. They are also the largest nation that worships the fish as their predominant deity. So they do a lot of sea-based rituals. They offer a lot of bounty. They burn wreaths on the surface of the water, things like that, to offer things to the fish. There is the Princess's Crown, which is a sort of crown-shaped caldera of an active volcano. It erupts several times a year, and they also have a very common practice of offering things to the fish by burning them in the caldera. Sears Island is their capital, named after their first leader, which was the Seer. Piscivole has sort of a tribe, almost like a tribal structure. So the islands themselves sort of operate independently of one another, and their villages all have elders, and then those elders will come together on Sears Island to decide anything that needs to be decided at the national level. Otherwise, pretty much unless someone is starting a military conflict with them, they're really pretty like hands off. They don't really have a large overarching government. It's more just, rules vary by city, island to island. They do not believe that piracy is a thing. They are simply commandeering your vessel for the fish and for the good of Piscivole. If you accuse them of being pirates, that is a grave insult, because they're not pirates. They're sailors. Thank you very much. So everyone sort of does things around seafaring, around fishing. It's very common. Some of them live in raft cities that aren't even on proper ground. They're literally just floating cities that are made off of wooden rafts and seaweed that float, and they move them around as the weather and the currents deem it necessary. And that's Piscivole. They're buddies with Lacra, and they pirate everybody else. So that's Piscivole. Caladran. We did an entire presentation on Caladran. That's the
Do we want
vampire
to just
capital of the world.
play the whole thing right now?
I will give
the whole 2 hours.
I will give a very, very brief summary. So, Caladran is the vampire capital of the world. They were founded by the progenitor. The progenitor, rather, is 5 descendants. The progenitor being the first vampire, the 5 descendants being the 5 people he turned. They worship the progenitor as a god. They are a vampire-first society. Humans and the handful of unlucky Talam that were created from the humans in their human settlements are segregated. There's no human servants. If you're in the capital, you will not see a human. There's the parlor, which is their political body. The harvest, which takes care of their human populations, lots of doctors and scholars. The temple, which is their religious body. Worship the progenitor. Look at how cool he is. Isn't blood magic awesome? The guard, which is literally the guard. They guard both the inner palace and the city of the capital. And then there is the navy, which is ruled over by the 4th descendant. And they have a giant fuck-ass sea serpent called Sunderfin that once demolished a peninsula and separated Caladran from the mainland of Frankelberg, making them an island. I could talk about them for literally 2 hours, and did. So go listen to that other meeting. I will still answer questions about Caladran today, for the record, but that's my very abridged TLDR. Go listen to the other meeting if you have questions.
Hey, we got more Naku. You did Saloon as well, right?
I sure did. So Saloon is a very strange desert nation. They are cursed. So a long time ago. Let me scroll to it on the website, because I'm forgetting his fuck ass name off the top of my head. I don't want to go to countries. I scrolled too far. Wow. Guys, everybody clap for Blur. The mobile website is legible now. So a long time ago, Saloon is one of the oldest countries on the continent. Saloon was a kingdom that was founded 12 years after the fall of the empire, so year 12 on our current calendar. They're one of the oldest countries in the world. So Saloon was founded, it used to be just a regular old kingdom in the forest of Un. They had very, very fertile land, they had plentiful food, and because of that, they had rapid expansion. They very, very quickly, once they were no longer worried about that, giant country and land-eating empire on the other continent, they enjoyed a period of rapid growth and just like a kind of a golden age. So, the Kingdom of Saloon very quickly became the largest country in the world following the collapse of the empire. So, but their 13th king really wanted to be an emperor. He's like, there's no emperors anymore. I could be an emperor, guys. And so he went to their southern neighbor, which was a kingdom called Lythe, and he was like, we're gonna take them over, and then we're gonna be so big that people will have to say that we're an empire. And they were unable to conquer Lythe. But the current king of Lythe only had one daughter. He did not have any other heirs. And so he's like, hey, tell you what, You marry my daughter, you make her queen of your kingdom, and we can just unite into one single empire. But, and the king was like, that's great, that's awesome. But he was like, but you marry my daughter, we'll keep your name, so it'll be the Empire of Saloon. But you have to keep our religious practices. You have to worship the moon, not the sun. And he was like, cool, great. I'm the emperor now. This is now the Empire of Saloon. We've doubled in size. And now sun worship is forbidden. We only worship the moon. And it brought a curse upon the land. All of the dirt turned to sand. This gritty, red, unnatural sand. And no food would grow in the Empire of Saloon. And this desert that started at their capital slowly stretched outward and outward and outward over the centuries until it is a barren wasteland of a desert where nothing can grow. If they bring in dirt from the outside, as soon as that dirt touches the ground, it too turns into this coarse, inhospitable sand. So now the nation of Saloon, instead of being an empire that was thriving, that was ever expanded outward, it has instead shrunk its borders as it fights to survive. Because Saloon is dependent on their neighbors for both soil, water, and food. They import dirt in baskets, and they have these large like pulley systems and raised beds where their gardens are literally floating in the air with ropes and wooden scaffolding. Because if that dirt ever touches the ground, it will turn into sand overnight. Saloon, also their primary source of food are these giant sandworms that just sort of appeared in the desert one day. They eat a lot of those worms. They drink their blood in place of water, and it's twisted a lot of their bodies over the years. The people of Saloon have very dark teeth, very dark nails. They've got red skin, yellow eyes, because they've sort of taken on the appearance of these worms that they've spent centuries eating. Saloon now worships both the sun and the moon. It is by the mercy of the moon that they survive and the curse of the sun that they fight to live. So they are an interesting nation because they have their own religion. They're the only place that dual sun and moon worship exists anywhere in the world. I will post this weekend. We will be posting the extended like religious information thing, and I will have a section on their faith. But that's Saloon.
Sulu. The Hallowed Mountains. That's not a country. That's you can go there in game. It's small. It's tiny. It's big. It's large, it's tall, it goes from the southern end of Barterin, where we see it, north past Norris, north all the way to where it tickles Hafjelheim. It's the southern half, Yolheim, y'all. And who lives there? Not actually a lot of people. So yeah, the mountains, they're very big, very sparsely populated. Sun's Rise here is a monastery built at the top of the highest peak, built by the monks of the region. The name we had for this region before we put it in the Hallowed Mountains while I was just like working on developing it is Tibizant, because it's just legally distinct Tibet in a lot of ways. We have monks in the very high mountains living in monasteries that really survive off of the cultures of the nomadic peoples below that sort of move between the valleys and these great mountains. The total population of this country is easily less than 10,000 humans, which makes it very difficult to be a vampire there because there aren't a lot of people to eat. Werewolves, if you want to be a werewolf in the Hallowed Mountains, that's actually probably a good place to do it, because you're very unlikely to bother anybody. The highest peak is, of course, Sun's Rise. They also have, for the nomadic people, the lowlanders. For them, they have a area called the Roving Bazaar, which is essentially for like a month out of every year. Well, it's a little bit more than a month because they have a 10-month system, which I'll get into in a second. For a little bit more than a month out of every year, they all gather around to essentially go to one valley and party. They pack a shit ton of food so that they can go party for 1 month out of the year. This is usually in early summer because they start moving in spring and they find each other by early summer, party for a month, and then they fuck off for the rest of summer until autumn, and then they start getting ready for winter. So each of these villages are pretty small. They're like realistically only like 100, 200 people. So this is your only chance to meet people who aren't all your cousins. Very small culture if you do want to be from there. You're very likely to have met other players who are from there because of just how small it is population-wise. And then for the monks, it's entirely different. For the monks, these are people who were once lowlanders but went up to the mountains. The monks do not have babies among themselves. You can be a male monk or a female monk. They're both called monks. They're not called nuns or whatever. They are both monks, but they don't have babies with each other. Then they don't sort of have a different class. All monks come from the lowlands up to the mountains to seek enlightenment. And that's everyone who lives in the Hallowed Mountains, except for Merverius the Imposter, who's only rumored to live there, and he's probably the progenitor anyway. Let's be realistic. Yeah, they call him the Imposter, but he's probably the guy. That is the Hallowed Mountains. Play a monk.
Hey, let's talk about Welrons. So, Welrons was once referred to as the breadbasket of not Novaset. What's the other one? What's the name of the old empire that's gone?
Nostera.
Thank you. Sorry, we have so many end names for countries this season.
We should have just called it Nakuland.
I know, right? So Nostera. Nostera was the empire that once covered the entire western continent. And Welrons, the Welrons region of the Welrons Plains, was once considered its breadbasket. It's where that empire, the Great Empire, that once covered an entire continent, it was the main source of its food. They had plentiful fields. They had a lot of cattle. They were one of the only places that was able to regularly have whole ass herds of cattle to raise and butcher. So they were the meat and the wheat capital of the world. Well, the Welrons region suffered an incredible drought for about 200 years. They refer to it as the 100-year drought because they named it 100 years in, but it was longer than that. And during that time, the region of Welrons lost 2 of its other lakes. It went almost completely barren, and they were unable to sustain their own populations, much less the populations of the empire at large. Historians will credit the 100-year drought as being one of the main reasons why the empire collapsed. Following the end of the drought, Welrons slowly but surely became its own independent nation as the people of the Welrons Plains sort of united together for survival as the drought continued to endure. Welrons is actually, I believe it's our only republic. Welrons is a democracy. People vote other people into a senate, and they have a president that gets elected once every, I think, 4 or 5 years. Vote for Michelle Hernandez, everybody. A vote for Michelle is a vote for the people. So Welrons is a very unique country in that they are so aggressively anti-magic, they are against the divine. Welrons does not have a state religion, and in fact, bless you is considered an insult in Welrons because it is to invoke magic on another person is seen as gravely insulting. Welrons people are still farmers and ranchers as their life's blood. The rich class are the people who own ranches, who own land, who own the cattle that the rest of them, are able to survive off of. So they have ranch towns where, there will be a community that pops up because somebody owns the next 100 miles, and then people will come and they will work on that person's farm, and so there will be towns of people that all essentially work for the same ranch. And so there's people that are tending to the cattle, there's people that are processing, they're butchering the meat, they're processing the hides, they're making things from that hide, making things from the bones, and so there's entire economies around the entire life cycle of the cattle that they grow, of the farms and the food that they raise. So Welrons is very, very rooted in its agriculture. It's very, very anti-magic, very, very anti-vampire. Trying to fake selling garlic or selling garlic, claiming something as garlic seeds that isn't actually garlic seeds, is a capital crime and will get you executed. Fun fact. It's very common for marriages to be arranged, so you'll be arranged marriage and then sent to another farming community on the other side of Welrons. They're a human nation. The southern accent is from Welrons. It's the Rons accent. So if you want to be southern, you should be from Welrons. Because
Yeehaw.
canonically, yeehaw, that's where the accent comes from. All right, and that's Welrons.
The seas and oceans. Do we want to do anything before we go straight into the water? Do we want any other comments on the countries? I realized when you started the Welron slide that I don't have Vardarin in here.
That's
That's because Vardarin's not a country; it is a region.
You are right. It was on
over
purpose.
respect Vardarin. It's a shithole.
Yeah, I believe on the website it literally says it's a backwater.
Yeah, it's we can go quick and dirty over the different regions of let's go really fast and dirty over Vardarin. Farbane is full of bandits. There's bandits there. They do bandit things like poaching animals and banditry in general. There's the Dunley Farmlands, which is home to their militia is one of the oldest organizations in the world. It's taken many permutations since the fall of Nostera. Vardarin was a very, very, very long time ago a Nosteran settlement, but it is not anymore because the Empire has been gone for 1,273 years, formally. In practice, longer than that. Transcendum land has been taken over by Transcendum, which is a company from Norris, their northern neighbor, those guys that have permanent reign and are fucking with the environment. There's a company of them that are like, we don't want to follow laws. Black Blue was like, I don't want to follow laws. Let's go 50 miles south to the other side of the border, and then we can do illegal science without paying fees. The Cursed Forest appeared overnight 5 years ago. It used to be a mountain. And then the residents of Dudley Farmland woke up one day and they went, where'd the mountain go? And then they walked north and there was this whack-ass forest with cursed mist that was eating people. And they were like, wow, that's suspicious. Let's never go in there. And that's the Cursed Forest. And then Silverlight is, Luminance really was like, hey, this is our stronghold for our war against that shitty guy Dracula. And they're lingering. And I think that's really all that we have to say about Vardarin, other than find out a character.
Oakvale. We didn't say Oakvale.
Oh, yeah. You can talk about Oakvale.
Oh, yeah, Oakvale. They just wanted some blue, and now they have purple. That's all there is about Oakvale. Anyway, I'll mention this with Luminance as well. You might say it was for Dracula. I think they just wanted some warm water.
Yeah.
Honestly, so let's talk about the seas.
Yeah, we love sea. Caladran does use the map on the left. They have a Caladran-centric world map. They do not use the other one.
Yes. So I believe the Calidric Ocean is named after Caladran, but Aetheria is named after the Aetheric Ocean. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Yes. Yes. So as you can see from the fact that this ocean exists, what you might not normally see is that Aladar, Welrons, and Saloon, they don't like Caladran much. This is where Caladran's bullying. These are the people that Caladran bullies the most. And you see the Shattered Peninsula. Ahania is up in the mountains. It's a lot harder for Caladran to bully them because they have silver everywhere. But they can't leave the mountains anymore. And then here we can see the ruins of Nostera. This is where that huge empire once lived.
I could talk about the ruins of Nostera for 2 seconds. The ruins of Nostera are sketchy as fuck. There's still old castle buildings, and if you go in there to study it, you die terrible deaths. People say that they see ghosts. People say that it's cursed. If you take anything from the ruins of Nostera, much like an Egyptian tomb, you and your bloodline will suffer a terrible blood curse that will do terrible things to your body, and maybe bugs will come out of your eyes. And that's why
you don't want to know what Naku's going to do to you if you take something from Nostera.
Listen, you want to be from the ruins of Nostera, you ping me in an RPO ticket, and I will bequeath you terrible things.
Yes. Looking at the Aetheric Ocean, this is the ocean that has trade that isn't taken by the vampires. Instead, it's taken by the fish people and the pirates. Honestly, Aetheria and Nova Franca, they're so friendly compared to the other half of the ocean sailing people. I will say, as I mentioned before, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about it in a second instead. But yeah, you can see that sort of like Frankelberg and Vardarin, really easy trading partners if only Vardarin had anything of value to export. But Norris, Hafjelheim, Welrons, Frankelberg, and Nova Franca, Aetheria, and even to a lesser extent Novasvet, they're all very very much able to trade with each other a lot more easily, so they're less incentivized to go to war with each other constantly. Less incentivized. Can I talk about this one?
Go for it.
I like
this is
this
your
one.
child. This is yours.
This is
I'm
my
handing
baby.
you the baby.
Yes, this is the Endless Sea. It goes north. If you sail there, like you sail beyond a specific parallel, you don't return. No one knows what's up there. Some globes will artistically represent it as a giant waterfall that just sort of goes into the core of the planet. Others will just round over the top. They assume some magic's going on up there, something funky, where that's why you don't return. But you cannot be a person who has explored the Endless Sea. If you go beyond a certain line north, you haven't come back. Similarly, this is a way that you can really easily write your character out of the story between seasons. If you don't want them to die, you can just say, oh, my guy, they sailed north to explore the Endless Sea. And that's perfect. But yeah, no one has ever returned from there, and people have been going to explore it for millennia. Less common now, but it's not called the Endless Sea to be nice. Presumably, it just keeps going and going and going. And if you're like, how do you make a globe like that? Good question. You should be a cartographer exploring and wanting to understand the Endless Sea. Make that your character. Please do. This is the less interesting sea. This is our Antarctic Ocean. This one does freeze at times of the year, meaning that you can't cross through here via boats. But it does mean that if you're really fucking quick, there's a land bridge. Yeah, there's not really a lot of good land down here.
There's ice, guys. The waves are
yeah,
freaking scary.
It's all ice. The ice isn't on the map. But yeah, basically, I would say from around here to here, these sort of little bumps here, is realistically all ice in winter. And then once you get like down here, it's gonna be all ice year round. We got some south polar ice caps. And now we have the big map, so that we can look at everything in context. And I think we're ready to open to questions, unless anyone else has something to say.
Before we go into the Q&A, do we want to real quick and dirty go over the other miscellaneous regions?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. I'll just let me pull up the website and we'll just go through them in order. Just because I realized we could verbalize them. We're here. We might as well.
Yeah, might as well, yeah.
Okay. Miscellaneous regions. So the first one is the Blathian Salt Flats. So it is the region that is north of Welrons. It has recovered from the drought markedly less. While Welrons house now stable groundwater, they're not suffering from like dust storms anymore. Welrons was very dust bowl, if you have an idea of what that period in U.S. history was like. So they're still recovering from Dust Bowl era times. The salt flats are markedly not recovering. The salt flats suffer from storms of like salt cyclones. However, the salt in the salt flats did a really good job of preserving relics of Nostera. So archaeologists really like to go there because there's like mummified bodies and stuff that are just like in like full Nostera garb that are just untouched by time because they were buried in literal salt. So you're welcome to be from any of our miscellaneous regions. Just know that whatever community you're a part of is not big enough or politically relevant enough to be on the world map. Shimmer, shimmer. The next one is the ruins of Nostera, which I already touched on. It's the remains of Nostera's capital. That region remains largely uninhabited, one, because they're right next to Caladran, and if Caladran sees a human settlement, they're like, food! So they go kick the shit out of them, and it's cursed as fuck. So the capital was Noster, and it's dead now, and people say that there's ghosts there. The other region is the Shattered Peninsula, which is the remains of the island, the land bridge, because Caladran used to be a peninsula. It is not anymore, because Sunderfin, the big friend snake, used its big old body to sit on it, and now it's gone. And then going over to the eastern continent, there's the Glacian Wilds, which is a frigid and unforgiving stretch of land that is at the directly south end of the continent. Travel there is incredibly dangerous. There's thousands of of avalanches every year. The mountains directly to their north are all slag, and so when snow builds up on that slag, it's devastating. There are innumerable avalanches. People get stuck under shelves of ice and slag. It's very, very dangerous to navigate. The people that were there are primarily woodworkers, survivalists, and skilled hunters. They just kind of live off of the land. They know how to, how to navigate it, and they just kind of move around. Deepwater Lake is the lake that is on the far end of the eastern continent. It is the largest freshwater lake in the world. The coasts have very deep, warm, pearlescent sand. They've got lots of unique seashells and coral in the lake that can't be found anywhere else in the world. Some believe that the lake is home to a massive serpent, not unlike Caledron's Thunderfins, but the reports of the monster's size and appearance vary very wildly. Some say it's folklore, it's hogwash. Others say it's super real. I saw it once. The truth is up to you. But a lot of the local, folklore and culture around the lake center around the sea serpent in the lake. There's a lot of fishermen, a lot of people that, grow rice and stuff along the river's edge. And the tree the water is crystal clear. And tree systems from the forest around Deepwater Lake feed directly into it. So if you're standing at the edge, if you look out over it, you'll see roots literally growing into the lake. North of that is the Lithe Rainforest. It was named for the kingdom that used to be there prior to the unification of Saloon into an empire. So it's named for the kingdom that used to be there. The rainforest has been getting progressively more inhospitable because of all of the rainfall that comes over the Hollowed Mountains from north. It's slowly getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So there's giant fuck-off alligators, there's giant snakes, there's giant bugs, and pretty much anything that you could find in Australia, you can find it in the rainforest, and some other stuff too. People do brave it for the valuable pelts and scales and herbs that grow in the rainforest, but it doesn't have a particularly large population nor any cities, just because it's a fucking rainforest. It's a swamp. You try to dig on it, you sink. Yeah, it was once part of the Saloon Empire, but as Saloon has retracted in response to their ever-growing drought issues, they sort of abandoned the land. So some people that are in the rainforest may still consider themselves to be descendants of the Kingdom of Lithe or members of the Saloon Empire, even if they don't live there. So yeah. And then the Forest of Un is the trees that are just north of Saloon. It is the only remaining part of the Un forest. They made a conscious effort to abandon all settlements within it when the sand started getting really, really bad in an effort to save the forest. And as such, Saloonites frown upon anyone settling there because they believe that settling there will invoke the sun god's wrath and he will turn the what remains of the forest into a wasteland and a desert, just like Saloon itself. So if people from Saloon see you living there, they frown at you and shake their little fingers. The Whispering Peaks are the tallest point on the northern edge of the eastern continent. Lots of sheer inclines, deadly rock slides, lots of snow there as well. It is in sort of our volcanic ring, which is, a lot of that northwestern part of the eastern continent. So there's a lot of volcanoes in there, some dormant, some very active. The Whispering Peaks are also named as such because the wind literally whispers as it moves through all of that rough rock. And so when you're standing on the peaks, it sounds like somebody's whispering in the distance. Locals and people who frequent the area believe that following the whispers anywhere is a surefire death. Super cursed, don't do that. Bad luck. The World's Teeth is right next to Hafjelheim. It's kind of an extended part of the Whispering Peaks. It is a long stretch of very, very, very active volcanoes that erupt near constantly year round. They play an important aspect of Hafjelheim's sort of religious practices because the smoke from the teeth blows their way. So they're constantly getting the fallout from those mountains, or those volcanoes rather, that are sitting in the ocean. They're kind of cut off on our image, but they're like a strip of volcanoes that are in the sea. Yeah, so those are all of our miscellaneous regions that have names. If there's anywhere else on the map that's snaky that you want to be from, like the islands off of the Oman Plateau, or a different what's that strip of land south of Frankelberg next to Nova Franca, go for it, girl. We believe in you. And now we can answer questions.
Yeah, questions. I like that question.
I can answer that question. Merrick asks, Caldran is an island with a huge castle with one castle heart, right? What about castle relocation? Can you move Caldran, let's say, to the other side into Frankelberg? Could I do it? Yes. Can you do it? No. Because in the words of the royal family of Caldran, you're bitch made. Next.
Has the
That was the only one
overcast
I'm going to answer.
has the overcast over Norris been present only for the past 5 years, or has it been longer? It's been much longer. So, the overcast over Norris is not magical. It is Norrisian technology that they have. Let me check my thing here. I'll give you the exact things. Looks like 1050 was when they started. Saw the creation machines. It's been probably about 70, 80 years that they've had the technology to keep it all the way overcast and constantly raining in the Hollyhaven Valley.
I love seeing several people are typing.
Galen asks, how much influence can we have around the world? Like, for example, can we find a cure for the plague of Norris? If you wanted to do something like that, because it is something that's impacting an entire nation, if you wanted to make that like your entire arc's long character mission, then yeah, maybe if you put in all the RP work for it. But that's not something that you're going to solve in a week or even a month or potentially even a season. Things like that that are affecting entire nations on a national scale, you have to put in enough like effort RP wise to get that payoff. Nothing like that can be in like your backstory or anything, yeah. Um, is the sandwheel the enemy of the fish? Trick question. We are all a part of the fish's scales. So no.
Perfect.
Do the sun and the moon god of saloons have proper names? They are just referred to as the sun and the moon. They're both, the sun is given masculine pronouns, the moon is given feminine pronouns. They don't have names, they are the sun and the moon with a capital M and a capital S.
For the Hallowed Mountains, I think the vernacular used was they can't have kids among each other. Does that mean that the non-monks are fair game? Yeah, no, the people who are the people who live in the valley, they do have multiple generations. They didn't die out 500 years ago. Yes, they do have children in the Hallowed Mountains. It's just that the monks specifically have a vow of celibacy because they have to focus on enlightenment, not on raising children. Did that answer your question, Vivian? Did I understand it right?
While Vivian's typing, Vero asked, is there any particular connection in Saloon with the magic of and their gods, like elemental magic with fire to the sun or frost illusion magics to the moon? Bitch, find out in character. Sorry, that's a distinct maybe. Do research. Find out. Maybe. You don't know. You can assume so.
Vivian, with that correction, that's about monks having. Basically, you can just leave the monastery. Your old like monastic brothers and sisters are going to think you were bitch made for like leaving the monastery to go have a family
Whoa,
instead of chasing enlightenment.
Don't be taking Caladran's lingo for a fucking monk.
I believe my monks are older than Caladran. And we have the progenitor, Merverius the Imposter himself here. I didn't remember to say the fun thing about the monks, since you're asked about them. The monks have a fun calendar. They don't know what year it is. They have a calendar where they have 10 months in a year, 10 years in a decade, 10 decades in a century, and then it's the next century, and they don't count how many centuries there have been. They just know what the year is on a scale of 1 to 100. Then it resets. So they really don't have things dated very well for a very long time.
What would a national dish of each region be? Oh,
Piscivole and Lacra definitely have, like, sushi and seafood. Welrons is eating beef and barbecue for sure. I think Frankelberg is bread. Like France, you know? They got, like, croissants and stuff.
Ahania is probably rocks. No, wait.
rocks.
Ahania is probably very extravagant dishes because they import all their food anyway. Very bougie stuff.
A saloon is things made out of the worms.
Hafjelheim. I've actually thought about this before. Hafjelheim does things like bog butter, right? Where you bury it in the bog, in the marshes. And then when you pull it back out, it's ready.
The Hallowed Mountains has yak milk.
Leo asked, are the deities' existence proven or uncertain? That is up to the faith of your character. I will say no, like, there's not any recorded instances of gods, like, descending in the physical body, but a lot of people believe in them. Saloon sure is a desert for reasons. Up to you. Just as faith is in real life.
The closest thing to proof that there is a god in one of the faiths is the existence of the progenitor in vampirism.
And the fact that luminance is light magic.
Well, maybe.
They prayed for a solution and they got some light. They got some holy blasted about it.
Which nation would be best equipped to handle a vampire invasion besides Caladran?
Ahania.
Definitely Ahania.
Ahania has silver coming out of its fucking ears. You'd experience silver burn as a vampire just walking down the street in Ahania. It's not conducive to vampiric life.
At all. That's why they're so fucking rich. They just sell their silver to everyone, namely Frankelberg. Oh yeah, if you're a mitt in Ahania, you better fucking leave. Where? Well, yeah, get the fuck out. Like Ahania, you're human if you're there, basically. The air is spicy.
As Duke said, only humans can comfortably live in Ahania. Is a mitt, you would feel violently, violently ill. You'd have a very hard time staying in Ahania for like an hour. It's also incredibly uncomfortable for Talam and werewolves. You just feel sick. It's you cannot live there unless you're a human. Yeah, silver owl for everyone that's not human. That's I don't think we said that on the website, but yeah, silver owl for everybody.
If it doesn't explicitly say that you're immune to something, it means that you probably have a weakness to something. Like, nowhere, anywhere do we say, I think, that anyone's immune to fire. Probably everyone can be hurt by fire.
Fire owl.
Et cetera, et cetera.
In fact, there is someone that can be too, like, extra hurt by fire.
Mechanically, a lot of the races should have their weaknesses laid out, actually, and I do believe it says that for both, like...
It does. Each race has a mechanic section that says what they are and are not immune to.
Yeah, and I don't...
Or rather, what they are immune
yeah.
to.
And silver owl for everybody, except for humans.
Yeah. Oria, yeah, I can say something about that. Oria is the southern end of Novosvet. It is the capital of the region of Dormiria, which is the Sleeping Lands, the southern end of the world. They are a city on a valley, rise within a valley that basically is in the middle of a donut lake that's frozen over for the past several centuries. Constant aurora going on over it. Very defendable. Essentially impossible to take by force, which is why Luminance didn't take it by force. They had the people commit a rebellion, and then the head of the king was presented to the prophet Nicholas on his arrival to the city after his treacherous journey through the night wastes. That is what it can be said about Oria. Should I just say it again?
Okay, it's all on the website. Don't hurt your hands, Sarah. It's okay.
Oh, I'll take Galen's question. Which of the nations has the lowest survival rate for every race? Well, so it's really easy. Ahania has the lowest survival rate of everyone but humans. And humans have the lowest survival rate in Caladran.
I will also add for Ahania, they actually have a issue with humans that has cropped up in recent years. For around a decade or so, not quite. Ahania has been struggling desperately with a rising child mortality rate. For something that isn't lead poisoning for the first time in their history, and they really can't figure it out. Great plot hook if you want to be from Ahania. Figure out why they have a child mortality rate.
Leo asks a question about vampire academies with teen drama and political and shenanigans between students from different bloodlines. To first answer that question, vampires are not born. You're a full-grown ass adult when you turn into a vampire, because you don't age, and we require everyone to be over 18. So, probably not a drama society thing because it's a very heavily regulated state, and the turning of someone in Caladran is very intentional. So if you're someone who is very prone to drama, you might not have even gotten turned because people like pick and choose. Turnings are approved by the parlor for the most part. For more on Caladran, watch the video Naku posted.
Party. Yeah, Caladran distinctly does not have any like formal schools or academies. Most things are going to be like there may be some people that are like, yeah, I'm gonna give a lecture on blood magic because I think blood magic is the tightest shit in the world, and then people listen to their lecture on blood magic. But they don't really have any sort of like formal education system because everyone's a grown-ass adult. And in Caladran, they only turn people who are already excelling in most fields of their life. Like they go and they select people to turn because they're the best scholars, they're the best warriors. So everyone that gets turned in Caladran or by Caladrans that are like, that then in turn get accepted into their society, they're already highly decorated scholars or very accomplished scientists or, whatever. So the people that are brought into Caladran are already experts at their trades most of the time. So there's no reason to have a school because they only bring in doctors to begin with, sort of thing, you know? So the thing is, so Vivian asked, would a human who is like someone making it in Caledron be completely out of the question? Like someone vamps around them find useful enough to allow the human to have some autonomy. The humans in Caledron live in excluded communities that are outside of the capital. So if you live in Caledron, you will never meet a human unless you're a member of the Harvest being the vampires that take care of the human settlements. So humans are completely segregated from the vampire population. They're not servants, they're not a part of blood clans, they're not around humans, the vampires at all. Vampires and humans are completely separated. So you can't be like the favored human of a blood clan because blood clans are not interacting with humans. Only the Harvest is. And they move members of the Harvest around to ensure that they don't get attached to humans because they're cattle. They're being raised as cattle. They live pretty solid lives. They don't get diseased. They don't get attacked by bandits. They always have enough food, water, warmth, shelter. But humans do not have like personal relationships with vampires. That would be exceptionally rare. Nah, jazz hands.
Jazz hand.
Vampires sneaking extra food. If you'll notice in the Fifth Hell section of Caledran, sneaking into a human settlement unauthorized doing so is a minimum 75-year sentence.
What they gotta get is they gotta get around 50 people, 50 vampires that hate the state. Keep it under wraps for a year while they plan, and then try to rapidly turn every human in Caledran overnight. That'd be terrorism.
Most populated nation by far is Frankelberg. Frankelberg has the largest population, probably followed by Novosvet and then Velrons.
Yep.
And then Saloon in fourth.
Yep, that makes sense. And all of Novosvet's population is just like in this top part. Really, they don't have much else to the south. Vinny, I think Nova Franca might compete with Omen for lowest population.
Nova Franca is literally just a city.
So, yeah, it's like a town
yeah.
in the forest. I think it might beat it.
Yeah, they're like Nova Franca population wise is like up there with like the monks. Or down there with the monks rather. Like their population is very, very small.
Yeah, it's slightly lower than the Hallowed Mountains, but it's on an island and not across an entire region.
Is there an inn?
If there is an in-lore Geneva conventions, I don't think so.
War crimes are not
Here's
legal.
the thing about war crimes. You have to be at war to commit a war crime, and an individual as a character, could not go to war with another entity and have it be considered a war because you're not big enough to be at war. You're big enough to be a nuisance and then get smacked.
In which case, no matter what strategies you use, you'll still get tried and killed for terrorism.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you might as well be unethical.
Ruby asked a question that I won't repeat for the recording, but the answer is yes.
Do the Nova Franca lumberjacks have a rivalry with the Glacian Wilds lumberjacks to the south?
The Nova Franca lumberjacks probably don't know that anything exists aside from Nova Franca because of that crazy mist.
a quasi mist. The people of Nova Franca are very fixated on
Nova Franca.
holy fuck, the mist is trying to eat us all the time. People disappear in the dead of night, never to be returned again. Also, we have giant fuck off alligators living in our sewer system to the point that we have a dedicated town guard strictly to tending to the alligators to make sure they don't crawl out and eat people in the middle of the day. So Nova Franca is very focused on Nova Franca. They have a lot going on. The mist only goes where the trees are. So as long as they've cut down all of the trees that are in, like, the city itself, they don't have to deal with the mist. The mist is not present in the city. It's kind of, vaguely foggy. But as long as they keep the trees gone, the mist is also gone. So ostensibly you're safe in the village as long as there's no trees. There is, like, a cement ring around the outside of the city to really stop tree from getting any closer that, people don't live in. It's just a ring of cement. How fast do the trees grow and regrow? It used to be at normal tree rate, and then 5 years ago it stopped being at normal tree rate, and now whole ass trees will just appear overnight in the middle of town, and they'll be like, nah, fuck, and then have to cut down those trees very, very quickly because the trees mean mist. So it used to be normal, and now it's not.
Has the geography in Nova Franca changed in any other ways in the last 5 years?
You know,
That players from there would know.
it's the weirdest thing ever. They have a mountain. They didn't used to have a mountain, but now there's a mountain on the island in the middle of the woods. Super
That was
weird.
taking a really long time, like with plate topology and things, right?
No, it just appeared. One day they were minding their own business, and there was just a mountain.
I'm not sure I believe that.
Yeah, a mountain just appeared one day out of the blue. Totally weird. Isn't that weird?
That's so weird.
Hey, what crops are grown most commonly in Saloon when they are able to import dirt? Is it primarily fungus?
It's going to be things that require very little water, and have a short, like, gestation period. That's not the right word for that. That's babies, not plants, but meh.
No,
Um,
that's a correct word for it.
Party, guys, I'm on fire. So things like onions, garlic, carrots, a lot of root vegetables, potatoes, because you can stretch a potato, you can make a potato go far. A lot of things that can survive the heat. So very, like, tends to be like very, like, plain starchy plants. Um, Mushrooms take a fuck ton of water to grow. So actually, I don't think they would grow mushrooms because mushrooms require a moist environment. So it's things that can grow in the dry summer heat. They have cactuses that, like, bear fruit, stuff like that. The mountain appeared in Nova Franca 5 years ago.
How well known is the progenitor to the common man? Oh, vampire
You skipped
people.
one there, Chief. Have there been
Oh.
instances of sentient undead in, I assume they meant Norris.
Oh,
And in the S are far apart on the keyboard.
no instance of sentient undead, although not everyone who gets the plague dies from it. So you can survive the plague if you're very lucky. So, like, we're talking less than a 1% survival rate once it gets to the point where it's bad. But if you do let it get really bad, then you'll start kind of looking like a zombie with, like, rotten flesh and shit. But you won't be dead yet. And if you get it cured at that point, you'll probably die from another infection. But if you don't, then you might look like a sentient undead, but you'll still be a human. You wouldn't actually be an undead. You would still die. It's a normal human thing to be a very frail human. But no, there wouldn't be any sentient undead unless you count vampires.
How well known is the progenitor to common man? To common man, I assume you mean vampires. And they know about him. They know that he's pretty much, well, he is the start of their race. They know that he is essentially their god based on the primary faith of Caladran. Would you have seen or met the progenitor? No. If you saw him, you probably would never know. Or he's gone, or he's this. Yeah, you're dead, maybe, or maybe he's this uber tall super Chad. Who knows? Naku, there is a Frankenberg question.
Does Frankenberg have a queendom that's a black sheep of the queendoms? Really, any queendom that's welcoming and accepting of vampires, of which there are several, they're kind of looked down upon by everybody else, because Caladran is their number one enemy. They hate Caladran. Caladran cost them their, like, entire, western shore and a bulk of they used to be like twice as big as they are now. So if you're more lenient towards vampires in particular, other queendoms will kind of look down on you. There's not any named ones. The queendoms, you can make up your own queendom because there's 1,000 of them by design. So if you want to make up your own queendom with its customs and stuff, feel free. That's absolutely allowed. When did the mountain appear in Nova Franca again? 5 years ago.
How deep's the water in Deepwater Lake?
It's so deep, nobody
You
knows.
don't know.
It goes on
Holy
forever.
moly.
They try to dive to the bottom and they die. They can't do that.
So we have the Endless Sea and the Endless Lake?
Yeah.
I wonder if they're connected. The Endless Puddle.
There are other landmarks that spontaneously appeared 5 years ago.
There sure are. There are entire mountain regions, like Etheria, that just appeared in the middle of the fucking ocean one day. People from Lacro were trying to go bother Welrons, and all of a sudden there were literally giant mountains just appearing in the middle of the ocean. There's mountains that appeared, there's woods that appeared. Lots of just weird shit happened 5 years ago where mountain peaks disappeared, forests appeared, lakes went bye-bye or changed color, or suddenly there's mushrooms in the forest around your house, and there's never been mushrooms here before. You're welcome to use your imagination with that. If you want your hometown to be suffering from something weird and you're not sure if it's kosher, just open an RPO ticket and we'll give you a yes, no, maybe so.
Mushroom.
Humans, I don't believe can use unholy magic, correct?
Yes, they can.
They
They
can.
can.
They're one of the
Humans
only
and
races that
vampires
can.
are the only two races that can use unholy magic. The rest have to get good and not spam skeletons to win the game.
I imagine necromancy pretty fucking frowned on in Norris, where they have an active
Oh, yeah.
undead problem.
Don't do that in
Otherwise,
Norris.
people have been necromancers, humans have been necromancers for 5 years or less. So large societal decisions about magic have not been made yet in most kingdoms because it's so new.
I will say that Havelheim is more focused on like nature things, but it's not necessarily an issue for necromancy.
Also, I'm gonna be that guy here really quick. We're very staunch, and this is getting out of countries and into magic talks really quick. We're very staunch that it is light magic, not holy magic. It is unholy magic, not necromancy, because how the fuck is a chain necromancy? Let's be real here. So it's unholy, it's blood, it's chaos, it's illusion, it's storm, it's frost, it's shadow, it's light. That's how it's written. It's written that way for a reason.
Don't lead yourself down misconception lane because you used the wrong word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's we're not. If you want to go down this whole necromantic arc thing, that's cool. But Vler spent a ton of time writing out specific lore for specific schools of magic to be used as a guiding framework. So please, please, please adhere to it, because that's the world that we're playing in.
Correct. It is unholy magic. Necromancy itself is when you kiss the neck. Unrelated to magic.
Yeah, that's a Valheim thing.
Yeah, that's a Valheim thing, yeah.
Holy magic is when you dig a hole with magic.
That's called geography.
Shovelmancy.
That's the Great Well of Rons.
Um,
Hey Naku, how would you help someone who wanted help naming a character from Rons? Would there be any resources you would point them toward?
why would you out me like this?
Because I'm outing myself as well.
So, there is a really, really bad baseball game that was made, um, many moons ago, and, the creators of this game were Japanese, and they did not have, like, any, American English people on staff. And so their made-up names, their glub shittos of, American names is all just, like, it sounds vaguely American, but isn't actually names. And everything in Welrons is taken from that game. Like the name of the lake, of the capital of Welrons itself. They're all people's names from that shitty baseball game. If someone wants to post a picture of it, I can't because I'm streaming, or I'm capturing rather the stream rather. But if someone wants to post a picture of the fucking um a name list. So yeah, things like that. It very Welrons is very like old western. So if you want to be named like names with like old American or like I guess probably like maybe some Hispanic roots or English
There's a
roots.
couple depending on where you're from in Walrons. Walrons is like a mix of from Texas all the way up to Montana. That was the
Yeah,
inspiration.
I was joking that I was making Montana and Wyoming smashed together in a fantasy trench
Well,
coat.
I asked you to make
There's
Montana so I
yeah,
could play a rancher.
there's more cows there than people in canon. It's just Montana in a silly little hat and mustache.
But the naming conventions would be like English, French, German, Hispanic, stuff like that. Leo asked, "Did people try to navigate from west to east without passing by the middle?" Apples, can you go back to the Caladran versus Etheria map?
Yeah.
Page?
What does it mean by the middle?
The Etheric Ocean.
Okay.
So Caladran, the map that the vampires of Caladran use, because vampires are very self-absorbed in the fact that they are the best, has Caladran and the Calidric Ocean at the center, as opposed to the Etheric Ocean. So think of it like the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. You can go across the Pacific, you can go across the Atlantic, but the Atlantic is usually shown in the middle because England.
Honestly, the Calidric-centric view is better because it emphasizes that Vardarin is just on the edge of the world and no one cares about it.
Main trade hubs are really across the Calidric Ocean. That's where like the big nations. There's some as well between Frankelberg and Novaset, but for the most part, like most like stuff, especially because Lacra and Pisca's Full are right there next to each other doing piracy down the entire stretch of the Etheric Ocean. Most like cross-continental trade is happening over the Caldric Ocean because between the sparse Caldric navy and oh my god, there's pirates and all they do all day long is be pirates, it is the safer ocean to travel, funnily enough.
Your Welron's trying to get anywhere else. You got to pick between the vampires and the pirates.
And
Poor
they're so close.
Novasfet.
And that's because Welrons does not have a navy because all of the times they've tried to make a navy, it's failed. Their navy has gotten obliterated by the pirates or the vampires, so they've stopped. Instead, they have a very strong cattle riding land army. They do not have a navy because it's a lost fucking cause.
I like to imagine one of the times they made a navy, it was somehow like the Omen Plateau's fault that it got lost. It's just a different reason every time.
They ran ashore because of one of the lighthouses.
Yes. Who puts a dye house in the middle of a desert? Yeehaw! That's what they said.
The highest peak. That's Hallowed Mountains, isn't it?
Yeah, highest peak. Let me go to my Hallowed Mountains. It's this one, Sun's Rise. They have a monastery in the highest mountain.
Alrighty, guys, the meeting is coming up on an hour and 45 minutes. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, we will be cutting it soon.
Oh.
Yes, we did add new schools to the game, Najee. We have 4 new schools of magic.
Have a full mod support for our spells and stuff, so you'll be able to, like, if you use light magic, you'll be able to equip your light magic spells yourself. If you have elemental magic, you'll be able to equip your elemental spells yourself. It's a lot like our 4 spell mod. I don't know how much of that you saw back when you were pew-pewing, but yeah. Go check out our specialty shit, girl. We've been cooking.
If someone was in one of the spots that got randomly transported or replaced with another landmark, what would happen to them? Like if someone was in the part of Nova Franca that was replaced by a mountain. Naku, what happens?
You know what I'm gonna say? I'm gonna say distinctly there's an answer to that question, but you must find out in character. Go do science in the Cursed Forest.
Typically not crushed by rocks.
All right, any other country-related questions? Any questions about what it's like to be a peasant in Novasvet or something?
Oh, I'd love to answer that question. Someone asked.
We've got 3 minutes.
We've got 2.5 calendars actually. So there's several calendars. There's AF, which is the one that all of the human nations use, or predominantly human nations use, which is after fracture. So it's marked by the official fall of the empire. The vampires use the calendar that ends in PA, which is post-apotheosis, which is marked, the beginning of their calendar is marked instead by the rise of the progenitor. So if you're using the collegiate calendar, it's like your 328, I think, and if you're on the everybody else calendar, the season will start in your 1273. So we do have calendars that we follow, and then the monks, like we said, are using their whack-ass calendar that doesn't really make any sense. So yes, we do have a calendar. We will have a timeline posted of like the founding of nations and important historical events. So yes.
Najee, the entire world is not on the same technological level to put it in a single century. Norris has sci-fi shit. Omen Plateau doesn't even know what a rock is. Like, we can't put it that easily. The
best way to describe the world state is what is in game. Use that as a baseline.
Upsilon asked.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But vampires use castle hearts to build castles. Can other races use that magic? Yes, because you need to have a house. You can't use blood magic if you're not a vampire, so keep that in mind. So whatever flavor you RP your castle heart as, whether that's a cool rock that you bought or a cool rock that you found, if you're a house of all humans, nobody is using blood magic on that castle heart. And just pretend it's not bleeding from its fucking walls. Sigma asked, what do humans who live in the Hollowed Mountains tend to look like?
Well, they tend to have 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 mouth, one mouth, one nose, and depending if they're a monk or not, they might not have so many hairs. 5 fingers, 5 toes. Um, in terms of ethnicity, I don't think we are mapping real world ethnicities onto
We are
people
not.
from different regions one to one. So they look like humans. They don't particularly have any bizarre features that would make them not look like humans.
Daracene, your question about vampires, your you're gonna need to give us more specifics, and I would like you to open up an RPO ticket so we can specifically answer that question, because it's
Depends
nuanced
where
and this
you
is a
are,
country thing.
what caste you're a part of. Like if you're in Caladran, how weird and rebellious you are is going to have very, very different implications if you're somebody who lives in the fringes, somebody who lives in the garden, or somebody who lives in the terrace. Like it's a completely different conversation depending on where you are. It's a very nuanced question. So yeah, you'll have to open a ticket for that.
What is the general reaction of Vardaranian natives to each other? Like, how do people of Dunley feel about the Silverlight Hills Church and/or Transcendum? Um, I'm going to fall back on the what's in game is what's accurate. So, use the in-game knowledge of what you see to inform what that looks like.
Cool. Any other questions? See if anyone types, and if not, we'll call it there. And again, if you think of any questions later, if something occurs to you while you're standing in the shower tomorrow, feel free to open an RPO ticket. RPO tickets are going to be open from now until the end of the season. So if you have a burning question about any of the countries, any of the races, any of the magics, just come bother us and or come poke us rather. It's not bothering, and we will explain in great depth anything you want to know, unless you have to find out in character.
If Veru posts a
Put that
silly
out.
question that's not a serious question, I'm going to just close the meeting right now.
Vera, you need to put that out. That's dangerous.
I forgot what his question was. All right, guys, thank you for coming to our meeting. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording now.